Hey guys, nice to see you again. You can see that I really dressed up here for you. I figure if I can't see you, it's already bummery enough that I'm just going to be as comfortable as I can be, and you're going to see me be a human being because usually you see this glorious, gorgeous robot in front of you. Now I'm always a mess. But today you're in my husband's office. My husband told me when we bought this house that the sunroom should be an office. And I said, I'm never going to have to work from home. So now I've taken over his office. Anyway, we are going to be reading 76 to 88 today. If you don't want to hear me read, you can always read this yourself. But if you're really struggling with this book, I just guarantee that having me read it to you and explain is going to help. So today, Miss A has a discussion board question for you. The other thing I want you to be doing is soon I'm going to ask probably for you guys to submit that timeline either by taking a picture of it and sending it to me via email or sharing it with me if you did it digitally. And as far as that quiz 1 goes, I obviously gave you the paper quiz because I thought I would see you. I don't know when I'm going to see you. So I'm trying to figure that out right now. So that quiz for part 1 should be done. Timeline should be done. Look for more guidance as to how to submit that timeline and quiz by this Friday. Also know that we have a Google Meet on Friday, so make sure you're checking that time. I put that slide with the 4 different colored boxes in the Monday message, so make sure you're checking that out. Finally, you need to let me know how you want to be graded. Highly recommend that if you have a good grade and you're planning on doing all the work from now until we go back, to pick the grade because it's going to affect your GPA and it'll be really positive. If you have struggled and you've been having a hard time in American Lit and you're like, I just need to pass, then you might want to select that pass-fail. Just know, though, that if you don't do anything and I am not able to get a hold of you and I've tried several times, then it's going to be an incomplete and you're going to have to take credit recovery or summer school. So if you're not going to do anything, that's what will happen. It's not like, well, she can't grade anything, so I'm just not going to do it. I can grade stuff. I just can't decrease your grade from what you had on March 13th, Friday the 13th before we left. Whatever you had that day, it can always go up, but it can't go below that. But if you don't do anything, then I can give you an incomplete. So just be aware of that. Now is the time to really work that grade up. I really recommend it. So if you have questions, email me. But pass-fail is for any class, required or not. So just be very smart. And you can pick pass-fail for my class, and then you could pick a grade for Algebra 2. So it's not all or nothing. You just have to let each of your teachers know, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're on 76. Montag has just decided that he's screwed, that his wife does not care about him reading or wanting to know more. He's trying to memorize parts of the Bible. She's not interested. She just wants to party with her friends. So he decides he's going to try to find somebody like-minded, like him. And that is Faber. He's a retired English professor that he remembers, Guy Montag, remembers meeting the year previous at a park. So we are at 76. All right, midway through. Go ahead and get your books out. Who is it? Montag out here. What do you want? Let me in. I haven't done anything. I'm alone, damn it. You swear it? I swear. The front door opened slowly. Faber peered out, looking very old in the light and very fragile and very much afraid. The old man looked as if he had not been out of the house in years. He and his white plaster walls inside were much the same. He doesn't have TVs. There was white in the flesh of his mouth and his cheeks, and his hair was white, and his eyes had faded with white in the vague blueness there. What do you think white symbolizes? If Faber's everything is white. His walls, his hair, his face. What does white symbolize? And if you're thinking right now, well, it symbolizes purity. It symbolizes perfection or, something of that nature. You're right. I mean, Faber is unfazed, unaffected by this society. He's clear. He's virgin. Then his eyes touched on the book under Montag's arm, and he did not look so old anymore and not quite as fragile. Slowly, his fear went. I'm sorry. One has to be careful. He looked at the book under Montag's arm and could not stop. So it's true? Montag stepped inside. The door closed. Sit down. Faber backed up as if he feared the book might vanish if he took his eyes from it. Behind him, the door to a bedroom stood open, and in that room, a litter of machinery and steel tools were strewn upon a desktop. Montag had only a glimpse before Faber, seeing Montag's attention diverted, turned quickly and shut the bedroom door and stood holding the knob with trembling hand. His gaze turned unsteadily to Montag, who was now seated with the book in his lap. The book. Where did you... I stole it. Faber, for the first time, raised his eyes and looked directly into Montag's face. You're brave. No, said Montag. My wife's dying. A close friend of mine is already dead. Someone who may have been a friend was burnt less than 24 hours ago. You're the only one I knew might help me. I see. Faber's hands itched on his knees. May I? Sorry. Montag gave him the book. It's been a long time. I'm not a religious man, but it's been a long time. Faber turned the pages, stopped here and there, and read. It's as good as I remember. Lord, how they've changed it in our parlors these days. Christ is one of the family now. I often wonder if God recognizes his own son the way we've dressed him up, or is it dressed him down? He's a regular peppermint stick now, all sugar, crystal, and saccharin, when he isn't making veiled references to certain commercial products that every worshiper absolutely needs. How interesting. Faber says in their society now, Jesus is sugary sweet. He's dressed down. He's selling merch. He's saying what people want to hear. Interesting. Do you see that today in religion? Do you see churches and leaders making, that's my dog and he will not stop. He's going to drive me insane. Making Jesus sugary sweet. I want you to think about that. Do you see society, religion, churches, mega churches making Jesus, whether you believe or not, we're talking about changing what supposedly this Messiah was supposed to stand for and making him a mockery, a commercial, somebody that will accept anything, any sin. It's interesting. Faber sniffed the book. Do you know that books smell like nutmeg and some spice from a foreign land? I loved to smell them when I was a boy. Lord, there were a lot of lovely books once before we let them go. Faber turned the pages. Mr. Montag, you're looking at a coward. I saw the way things were going a long time back. I said nothing. I'm one of the innocents who could have spoken up and out when no one would listen to the guilty. But I did not speak and thus became guilty myself. And when finally they set the structure to burn the books using the firemen, I grunted a few times and subsided, for there were no others grunting or yelling with me by then. Now it's too late. Faber closed the Bible. Well, suppose you tell me why you came here. I think that's really poetic. I know I keep stopping, but gosh, I wish we could talk in class. Have you guys ever heard that statement during the Holocaust that said, they came for the Jews first, but I wasn't Jewish, so I said nothing. Then they came for the gypsies, and I wasn't gypsy, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the homosexuals, but I wasn't homosexual, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for me, and nobody said anything. I think that this is a really interesting statement that Faber makes about being a coward and refusing to stand up. And then when he was ready to stand up, nobody was there to stand up with him. Nobody listens anymore. I can't talk to the walls because they're yelling at me. I can't talk to my wife. She listens to the walls. I just want someone to hear what I have to say, and maybe if I talk long enough, it'll make sense. And I want you to teach me to understand what I'm reading. Faber examined Montag's thin, blue-jowled face. How did you get so shaken up? What knocked the torch out of your hands? I don't know. We have something we need to be happy. We have everything we need to be happy. But we aren't happy. Something's missing. I looked around. The only thing I positively knew was gone was books. I'd burned in 10 or 20 years, 10 or 12 years. So I thought books might help. We have everything we need to be happy, but we're not happy. Think about 2.5 weeks ago. Think about 3 weeks ago, you had no clue. I had no clue we were going to be going through this. We had everything we needed to be happy, but we weren't really happy. Some of us. It's interesting. You're a hopeless romantic, said Faber. It would be funny if it were not serious. It's not books you need. It's some of the things that once were in books. The same things could be in the parlor families today. The same infinite detail and awareness could be projected through the radios and the televisors, but they're not. No, it's not the books at all that you're looking for, Montag. Take it where you can find it, in an old phonograph record, old motion pictures, and old friends. Look for it in nature and look for it in yourself. Books were only one type of receptacle where we stored a lot of things we were afraid we might forget. There's nothing magical about books at all. The magic is only in what books say. How they stitched the patches of the universe together into one garment for us. Of course you couldn't know this. Of course you still can't understand what I mean when I say all this. You are intuitively right. That's what counts. 3 things are missing. Number 1. Do you know why books such as this are so important? Because they have quality. And what does the word quality mean? To me, it means texture. This book has pores. It has features. This book can go under a microscope. You'd find life under the glass, streaming past an infinite profusion. The more pores, the more truthfully recorded details of life per square inch you can get on a sheet of paper. The more literary you are. That's my definition anyway. Telling detail, fresh detail. The good writers touch life often. The mediocre ones run a quick hand over her. The bad ones rape her and leave her for the flies. We talk a lot about this, I did last year, this idea that good books, good writers expand your mind. They make you think of things you never would have thought before. Mediocre ones, they kind of skim the surface. It's not real deep. And it doesn't have to be difficult to understand to be good. It just has to challenge you. It just has to make you think. And then the bad books, it says they rape her and leave her for the flies. What does that mean? What books can you think of right now or 10 years ago that were just made for cash? Weren't deep, didn't have pores. You couldn't open this book and be challenged. This is a book with pores. This is a crazy book. Kindred was a crazy book. It had pores. It had thoughts we had never even imagined. But there are books that people may say rape her and leave her for the flies, essentially. I mean, and it doesn't have to be in a sexual way at all, but think of books that people may say, that's not a book. I waited in line in Metamore grade school not too long ago to talk to the literature teacher, and she was fighting with a parent over whether graphic novels are books. Somebody may say that's not a book. Some people may say it most definitely is. It can challenge authority. It can make you question things. What about a book like 50 Shades of Grey? Is that a mediocre book? Is that a challenging book? Or is that just crap? Think about those things. I want you to be thinking what you would say was amazing book. One that's mediocre and one that's just like, eh. And not even like you didn't like the plot, but it didn't even make you want to open up your mind to anything else. So now, do you see why books are hated and feared? They show the pores in the face of life. The comfortable people want only wax-mooned faces, poreless, hairless, expressionless. We are living in a time when flowers are trying to live on flowers instead of growing on good rain and black mold. Even fireworks, for all their prettiness, come from chemistry of the earth. Yet somehow we think we can grow, beating on flowers and fireworks without completing the cycle back to reality. Do you know the legend of Hercules and Antaeus, the giant wrestler whose strength was incredible so long as he stood firmly on the earth? But when he was held rootless in midair by Hercules, he perished easily. If there isn't something in that legend for us today in this city in our time, then I am completely insane. Well, there we have the first thing I said we needed: quality, texture of information. And the second, leisure. 2K20. You need to have a good book and time. Oh, but we have plenty of time of off hours. Off hours, yes. But time to think? If you're not driving 100 miles an hour at a clip where you can't think of anything else but the danger, then you're playing some game or sitting in some room where you can't argue with a four-walled televisor. Why? The televisor is real. It is immediate. It has dimension. It tells you what to think and blasts it at you. It must be right. It seems so right. It rushes you on so quickly to its own conclusion your mind hasn't time to protest. Fed information. He says that's not leisure time. Sitting in front of a TV and someone telling you what to think in a TV show is not leisure time. What nonsense. Only the family is people. I beg your pardon? My wife says books aren't real. Thank God for that. You can shut them, say, hold on a moment. You play God to it. But who has ever torn himself from the claw that encloses you when you drop a seat in a TV parlor? It grows you any shape it wishes. It is environment as real as the world. It becomes and is the truth. Books can be beaten down in reason. Well, with all my knowledge and skepticism, I have never been able to argue with a 100-piece symphony orchestra, full color, 3-dimension, and being in part of those incredible parlors. As you see, my parlor is nothing but 4 plaster walls. And here, he held out 2 small rubber plugs for my ears when I ride the subway jets. Dentum's dentifrice. They toil not, neither do they spin, said Montag's eyes shut. Where do we go from here? Would books help us? Only if the third necessary thing can be given. Number 1, as I said, is quality of information. Number 2, leisure time to digest that information. And 3, the right to carry out actions based on what we learn from the interaction of the first 2. And I hardly think a very old man and a fireman turned sour could do much this late in the game. So 1, quality information. 2, time to digest it. 3, the ability to do what you want with that information. I can get books. You're running a risk. That's the good part of dying. When you have nothing to lose, you run any risk you want. There, you said something interesting, laughed Faber. without having reading it. Are these like that in the books? But if it came off the top of my head, all the better. You didn't fancy it up for me or anyone, just yourself. Montag leaned forward. This afternoon, I thought that if it turned out that books were worthwhile, we might get a press and a print some extra copies. We? You and I. Oh, no. Faber sat up. But let me tell you my plan. If you insist on telling, I must ask you to leave. But you aren't interested? Not if you are start talking the sort of talk that might get me burnt for my trouble. The only way I could possibly listen to you would be if somehow the fireman structure itself could be burnt. Now, if you suggested that we print extra books and arrange to have them hidden in firemen's houses all over the country, so that seeds of suspicion would be sown among these arsonists, bravo, I'd say. Plant the books, turn in an alarm, and see the firemen's houses burn? Is that what you mean? Faber raised an eyebrow and looked at Montag as if he were seeing a new man. I was joking. If you thought it would be a plan worth trying, I'd have to take your word that it would help. You can't guarantee things like that. And after all, when we had all the books we needed, we still insisted on finding the highest cliff to jump off of. But we do need a breather. We do need knowledge. And perhaps in 1,000 years, we might pick smaller cliffs to jump off. The books are to remind us what asses and fools we are. There's Caesar's prolocation guard, whispering as the parade roars down the avenue. Remember, Caesar, thou art mortal. Most of us can't rush around and talk to everyone, know all the cities of the world. We haven't time, money, or that many friends. The things you're looking for, Montag, are in the world. But the only way the average chap will ever see 99% of them is in a book. Don't ask for guarantees. And don't look to be saved in any one thing, person, machine, or library. Do your own bit of saving, and if you're drowned, at least die knowing you were headed for shore. He's like, there's nothing we can do. And books opened our minds. You know, we can't see and travel and see everything. Books are a way for us to feel what other people feel and see what other people see. And Faber's like, it's too late. It's too late. Faber got up and began to pace the room. Well, asked Montag, you're absolutely serious? Absolutely. It's an insidious plan, if I do say it so myself. Faber glanced nervously at his bedroom door. To see the firehouses burn across the land, destroyed a hotbed of treason, the salamander devours its own tail. Oh, God. I have a list of firemen's residence everywhere with some sort of underground. Can't trust people. That's the dirty part. You and I and who else will set the fires? Aren't there professors like yourself, former writers, historians, linguistics? Dead or ancient. The older the better. They'll go unnoticed. You know dozens. Admit it. Oh, there are many actors alone who haven't acted Partello or Shaw or Shakespeare for years because their plays are too aware of the world. We could use their anger. And we could use the honest rage of those historians who hadn't written a line in 40 years. True, we might form classes in thinking and reading. Yes, but that would just nibble the edges. The whole culture shot through. The skeleton needs melting and reshaping. Good God, it isn't as simple as just picking up a book you laid down half a century ago. Remember, the firemen are rarely necessary. The public itself stopped reading its own accord. Your firemen provide a circus now and then at which buildings are set on fire and crowds gather for the pretty blaze. But it's a small slideshow indeed, and hardly necessary to keep things in line. So few want to be rebels anymore, and out of those few, most, like myself, scare easily. Can you dance faster than the White Clown? Shout louder than Mr. Gimmick and the Parlor families? If you can, you'll win your way, Montag. In any event, you're a fool. People are having fun. Committing suicide? Murdering? A bomber fight had been moving east all the time they were talking, and only now did the two men stop and listen, feeling the great jet sound tremble inside themselves. That Those jets symbolize suspense. Something big's going to happen. Those jets are going to continue to come closer and closer, and that is a really good symbolic part of just this suspense. Something big's coming. Patience, Montag. Let the war turn off the families. Our civilization is flinging itself to pieces. Stand back from the centrifuge. There has to be someone ready when it blows up. What? Men quoting Milton? Saying, I remember Sophocles? Reminding the survivors that man had his good side too? They will only gather up their stories to hurl at each other. Montag, go home. Go to bed. Why waste your final hours racing about your cage, denying you're a squirrel? Ooh, I love that. This is a bummer. I mean, think about being Montag. He finally wants to make a change. He wants to change his entire life. Everything he's ever known, including his career. And the guy he goes to is like, it's too late, dude. They're having fun. We can't do anything. Then you don't care anymore? I care so much I'm sick. And why won't you help me? Good night. Good night. Montag's hands picked up the Bible. He saw what his hands had done and he looked surprised. Would you like to own this? Faber said, give my right arm. Montag stood there and waited for the next thing to happen. His hands, by themselves, like two men working together, began to rip the pages from the book. The hands tore the flyleaf and then the first and then the second page. Idiot, what are you doing? Faber sprang up as if he had been struck. He fell against Montag. Montag warded him off and let his hands continue. 6 more pages fell to the floor. He picked them up and wadded the paper under Faber's gaze. Don't, said the old man. Who can stop me? I am a fireman. I could burn you. The old man stood looking at him. You wouldn't. I could. The book. Don't tear it anymore. Faber sank into the chair. His face was very white. His mouth was trembling. Don't make me feel any more tired. What do you want? I need you to teach me. All right. Montag put the book down. He began to unwad the crumpled page and flatten it out as the old man watched tiredly. Faber shook his head as if he were waking up. Montag, have you any money? Some, $400 or $500. Why? Bring it. I know a man who printed out college paper half a century ago. That was the year I came to class at the start of the new semester and found only one student to sign up for drama from Euclides to O'Neill, you see. How like a beautiful statue of ice it was, melting in the sun. I remember the newspapers were dying like huge moths. No one wanted them back then. No one missed them. And then the government, seeing how advantageous it was to have people reading only about passionate lips and the fist in the stomach, circled the situation with your fire eaters. So Montag, there's this unemployed printer. He might start a few books and wait on the war to break the pattern and give us the push we need. A few bombs and the families in the walls of all the houses like harlequin rats will shut up. In the silence, our stage whisper might carry. This might work. They both stood looking at the book on the table. I tried to remember, said Montag, but hell, it's gone when I turn my head. God, how I want something to say to Captain. He's read enough so he has all of the answers, or seems to. His voice is like butter. I'm afraid he'll talk me back the way I was only a week ago, pumping a kerosene hose. I thought, God, what fun. The old man nodded. Those who don't build must burn. It's as old as history and juvenile delinquents. So that's what I am. There's some of it in all of us. Montag moved towards the front door. Can you help me in any way tonight with the fire captain? I need an umbrella to keep off the rain. I'm so damn afraid I might drown if he gets to me again. The old man said nothing, but glanced once more nervously at the bedroom. Montag caught the glance. Well? The old man took a deep breath, held it, and let it out. He took another, eyes closed, his face tight, and at last exhaled. Montag, the old man turned at last and said, Come along. I would actually have let you walk right out of my house. I am a cowardly old fool. Faber opened the bedroom door and led Montag in a small chamber where stood a table upon which a number of metal tools lay among a welter of microscopic wild wire hairs, tiny coils, bobbins, and crystals. "What's this?" asked Montag. Proof of my terrible cowardice. I've lived alone so many years, throwing images on walls with my imagination, fiddling with electronics, radio transmissions have become my hobby. My cowardice is such a passion, contemplating the revolution spirit that lives in its shadow. I was forced to design this. He picked it up. It was a small green metal object no larger than a .22 bullet. I paid for all this. How? Playing the stock market, of course, the last refuge in a world for the dangerous intellectuals out of a job. Well, I played the market and built all this, and I've waited. I've waited, trembling, half a lifetime for someone to speak to me. I dared speak to no one. That day in the park, when we sat together, I knew that someday you might drop by. With fire or friendship, it was hard to guess. I had this little item ready for a month, but I'd almost let you go. I'm that afraid. It looks like a seashell radio. And something more, it listens. If you put this in your ear, Montag, I can sit comfortably at home, warming my frightened bones, and hear and analyze the fireman's world, find its weaknesses without danger. I'm the queen bee, safe in my hive. You will be the drone, the traveling ear. Eventually, I could put out ears into all parts of the city with various men listening and evaluating. If the drones die, I'll still be safe at home, trending my fright with a maximum of comfort and a minimum of chance. See how safe I play it? How contemptible I am? Montag placed the green bullet in his ear. The old man inserted a similar object in his own ear and moved his lips. Montag. The voice was in Montag's ear. "I hear you." The old man laughed. "You're coming over fine, too," Faber whispered. But the voice in Montag's head was clear. "Go to the firehouse when it's time. I'll be with you. Let's listen to this Captain Beatty together. He could be one of us, God knows. I'll give you things to say. We'll give him a good show. Do you hate me for this electronic cowardice of mine? Here I am sending you out into the night while I stand behind the lines with my damned ear listening for you to get your head chopped off." "We all do what we have to do," said Montag. He put the Bible in the old man's hand. "Here, I'll chance turning it in a substitute tomorrow. I'll see the unemployed printer. Yes, that much I can do. Good night, Professor." "Not good night. I'll be with you the rest of the night. A vinegar gnat tickling your ear when you need me. But good night and good luck anyway." The door opened and shut. Montag was in the dark street again, looking at the world. I'm so excited. What is going to happen next? I love that. I apologize we went a little long today. We're at 33 minutes. I mean, essentially, I'm supposed to instruct for 30 to 45 minutes. So this gives you the rest of the time to work on that discussion board question. This is such a hard time. If you ever feel super overwhelmed and you're feeling like you can't handle it all, or you're confused, or you don't know what to do, please email me. I wish I could be there for each of you physically and talk to you. But you guys know that I just adore this class. And I miss you guys. But in this great time, I've been able to learn how to French braid my daughter's hair. And I played basketball with my son. And I was able to read some really good books. It's been a lot of good time with my husband. So please take this time to read good books, have time for leisure, and have time to think. I love you guys. I will see you soon. If you need anything, please email me. I'll see ya.